Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Hybrid Security Monitoring, presented by Neovera in partnership with AT&T, where you will learn more about a true hybrid cybersecurity monitoring solution. Next. So today's webinar will provide information on how Neovera, in partnership with AT&T's technologies, can accomplish complex security monitoring in a hybrid model. Now, most enterprises have a mix of platforms, such as on-prem and cloud infrastructures, that need to be monitored and managed 24/7 by 365. However, the hybrid approach may also cover multiple cloud providers, which bring a different set of requirements. With Neovera's know-how and AT&T's industry-leading technology, let's see how we have implemented cybersecurity monitoring and management for hybrid cloud and on-prem multi-tiered environments. Next. Our presenters for today are Greg Shanton, Vice President of Cybersecurity. Greg leads Neovera's cybersecurity professional and managed services for both commercial and government clients. He has over 25 years of experience in the cybersecurity field as well. Our second presenter is Nestor Morjan, Senior Enterprise Security Architect. Nestor has over 30 years of IT experience specializing in cybersecurity, and he has been a key player in many major enterprise transformation projects. Our third presenter today is Ryan Palmer. He is the Senior Channel Account Manager, MSSP, at AT&T Cybersecurity Partner Solutions. And before we start our presentation, just want to do a quick housekeeping. If there's any questions along the way through the presentation, please post these questions in the window, and we will do our best to answer these at the end of the slides. So now I'll be returning this over to Greg to start today's presentation. Greg, it's all yours.
Great, thank you, Shar. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the introduction for all three speakers as well. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone around the world watching this webinar live right now or recorded later. We really appreciate your time watching this, and we can go ahead and discuss what both Neovera and AT&T are doing together. And before we jump into the meat of the presentation, just want to make sure on give a brief background on Neovera. We are a managed service provider and a managed security services provider, providing services across cloud, on-premise, hybrid, etc. Right? Whether it be up in Azure, whether it be over in Oracle Cloud, whether it be in AWS, kind of cut that across the board with all the various pieces, and what we're talking about doing today is, and if we go to the next slide, what we're discussing today is really discussing our partnership and also hybrid security, hybrid security monitoring. So Neovera, we've been partnered with previously Alien Vault, which AT&T acquired, and now we're partnered with AT&T Cybersecurity and their MSSP program. We bring over 6 years of experience using the technology. We have, from the Neovera side, using the technology as well as some of the other security tools that we've used over the years, but all integrated together. We've done security services work for financial services, so for banks, for wealth management organizations, for leasing companies. We've done the security for defense contractors, whether it be for federal civilian or whether it be actually DoD, Department of Defense. We've done security for retail and manufacturing. We've done security for entertainment organizations like multiple ski resorts, for example. And we've also done security for education organizations around the world. So we've done a lot of work, and it's interesting if you look at it, because we always get asked about target market, target clients. We're very eclectic and very focused, but we have on the technology components, right? But our vertical markets that we actually touch and we've serviced are pretty vast, the ones I just mentioned, and it's worldwide, right? So we've also, with software manufacturers as well, for SaaS service organizations, we've done security work for SaaS organizations around the world also. With the nice thing with the AT&T product line and the advancements that they've done with the technology from Alien Vault, now the AT&T USM Anywhere and USM Central, we're able to offer our clients a 24/7 experience, 24/7 security, automation, you name it, right? It's a very strong product suite that we're using. And so with that, what I'll do is to introduce AT&T Cybersecurity and also to talk a little bit more about USM. I'm going to introduce Ryan Palmer, who we work with all the time now from AT&T Cybersecurity from Partner Solutions. So Ryan, why don't you go ahead and discuss AT&T Cybersecurity?
Thank you, Greg. Nice to meet everybody. I'm Ryan Palmer from the AT&T Cybersecurity side. Who AT&T Cyber is, we were previously Alien Vault, were bought out by AT&T Cybersecurity. Wanted to get more visibility into the small and medium business sector. We were known as Enterprise before with AT&T Cyber Direct team, but bringing on Alien Vault has expanded our resources to reach down to that small and medium sector as well. Who is AT&T? Over 20 years as leading provider of cyber consulting services, a highly effective, reliable partner, providing products and service to help detect, protect, and respond. World-class detection and response with our world-class USM Anywhere. Very proactive threat intelligence. It's our AT&T Alien apps, and that comes with the open threat, the OTX, and a global base of solution provider partners, which Neovera is one of my biggest ones, 6-year partnership that is going really well. Next. So when I speak USM, they always ask, is the timing right? As many of you know, the threats that we have in this industry, they rapidly change daily. Disruption due to rapid transition to cloud-based digital models, as we'll speak on today, moving from on-premise to in the cloud in a hybrid mode. End users' quest for flexibility that will increase adoption of security SaaS, and regulatory environment creating opportunities for security. And the most important is customers want simplicity. They do not want complexity. So that's really the USM in a nutshell. It's simple interface to use with the built-in complexity that you guys do not see on the customer side. Next. So as you see here is our hybrid cloud shared model. As you can see, there's some responsibilities from the customer and from AWS and Microsoft Azure. As you can see, it's called Cloud Shared Responsibility Model. As you can see, there is some responsibility for the customer in the cloud. Things that you are in charge of will be customer's data, the platform, the apps, the identity, the asset management, the OS, network, and firewall configurations, client-side data encryption and data integrity, authentication, server-side encryption, file server, systems and data, and network traffic protection, encryption integrity. And the things that AWS and Microsoft Azure, that the responsibility they have in the cloud is compute, storage, data, networking, also the cloud infrastructure from regions, availability zones, and edge locations. Just to wrap that up, just to wrap it up for you guys, these services are designed to work in conjunction with the cloud-based security management tools, while many traditional security tools such as firewalls, file integrity monitoring, and centralized logging remain effective as you expand your perimeter and move data into the cloud. Just adding these layers of security measures that are purpose-built, so all these are built in day one you sign with Neovera for the cloud, can help you better secure and monitor the full environment. Next. And I'll give that back to Greg. Sorry, that was my last slide. Greg, you can expand on that if you would like to tell them kind of how it is once you sign up with Neovera.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ryan. And Ryan, that's one thing that we definitely like about the AT&T USM Anywhere, right? Is that it's, whether it's API based or agent based, it's very well integrated, with Azure or AWS or Google up in the cloud, whereas, it's native. It understands those environments versus, non-cloud based SIM solutions. And you've seen that across the board, aren't you, Ryan?
Oh, yes, all across the board. And like we were speaking with earlier, I know there's a big push on the cloud play, but as you know, a lot of businesses just can't move into the cloud. There's compliance issues. There's just all kind of issues surrounding them fully moving into the cloud. So having that hybrid shared responsibility model is the best way to go if you still need to have some of your data on premise.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because that's one thing I know that we like about the solution. Because if you're in a hybrid cloud solution, you have, whether let's say you're moving some resources up to Azure, you've got someone in a co-location data center, or maybe on site, and you need to go do security monitoring across all those environments. That we found, the USM Anywhere works very well with that.
Correct. It's one of the biggest selling points for USM is the ability to have a hybrid mode for clients. Like I mentioned, it's just invaluable with what we can provide of services, being able to have hybrid cloud. Because like I mentioned, a lot of people still have to be on premise, but they still want to offset some of their data to the cloud. And that transition from the data center to the cloud, how are you being protected in that transition? And having shared responsibility model just knows that the customer has its responsibilities that it needs to handle, and then AWS or Azure handles the other side of the infrastructure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we found that works in the real world and, in practice as well. So it's very good. And then as I transition talking about, the various security challenges, right, that we're all trying to help out with, to track, monitor, so we can prevent, detect, and remediate. The same challenges that are in colos, data centers, on premise, remote users, etc. People still doing denial of service attacks. People still do password cracking. It happens all the time. We see that being trying to be done. People still attack, web applications, as well as really the most important thing is really around data security. Data security is really the most important piece, right? And access to that data, who has access to it, who has access to that data, whether it be structured or unstructured data. For instance, whether it's files, unstructured, or whether it's structured like in a database, who's accessed it, what have they done to it? Has anything been compromised of the data? Has there been any loss? Has there been any data leakage? And so that's very critical. It doesn't matter if you're in the cloud or if you're on-prem or if you're in a colo, normal data center. It's all still needs to be protected. Next slide, please, Nestor. And then you start looking at some things that are coming new up in hybrid. The first really is making sure that you have various security models, right? So you've got infrastructure as a service, you've got platform as a service, and you have software as a service. And those three models, quote unquote, up in the cloud are all different. All the security models are different. There is a little bit of overlap, but you really need to look at that. In one of our previous webinars, we did discuss this in a lot of detail. So I'm not going to do that today. You can definitely refer you back to one of our demystifying Azure Cloud Security and some of the other webinars we did over the past couple months. We definitely talked about that in detail. And as well, don't forget about on-premise. But really, if you start looking at it, is how are you managing and how are you monitoring your user activities, your application activities up in the cloud? How are you protecting your keys, your passwords, your keys? If you're an application developer, how are you protecting your certificates and the private keys right up in the cloud? If you're in Azure, are you using Key Vault, for example? If you're outside of that, people talk about an acronym called HSM, or Hardware Security Modules, right? There's a number of products on the market that have been, for that, but that's usually a colo or a on-premise model. Now, when you go into the cloud, how do you protect your actual keys for your application? How do you communicate, et cetera, right? So that's a big piece, right? But, and if you look at it, you still have all the normal threats and same intrusion detection that goes on. So how do you do that? And so that's, we're going to talk about that here in a couple of slides. Esther's going to jump into that here soon. So what we're doing is, if you look at this, is that what's a better way to start, to start looking at this stuff. So, right. So number one is, around identity access management. So when you think of security monitoring, a lot of folks just think of, hey, I'm going to do network IDS and network intrusion detection. That's not good enough anymore, but that is an important element. You absolutely have to do that no matter where you're located, cloud or non-cloud, on-prem, et cetera, right? Still need to do that. You still need to get your firewall logs. You still need to get your operating system logs, and you still need to look at who's looking at your data, but you definitely still need to look at your identities, your profiles with that, your access management, what are your access control lists? And I'm not talking about just, a lot of people focus right back to the firewall, but I'm actually talking about, are you watching Active Directory or Azure Active Directory? Are you watching the user activity that's going on in there in detail? And then correlating that information on who's doing what to your cloud infrastructure. If you're not, you should be, okay? So the log collection also is very important. And the log storage is very important. Your logs, when they're being sent, wherever they're going, right? Are they secured? Are they encrypted? Is there authentication between the sender and receiver? When they're stored, are they stored encrypted? Are they, for instance, are they signed, hashed, or are they stored in a write once, read many type of environment, type of tools? That's very critical as well. Again, no matter if you're cloud or on-prem. And then intrusion detection in the cloud. Lastly, you definitely still need to do that, like I was talking about, but you really need to think about all layers of the old school OSI stack, right? You need to look at all layers of that. So I can't stress enough about the identities and the access with that. So that's monitoring Active Directory. So with that, let me turn over to Nestor, who's going to start going into some more details on what we just talked about.
Thank you, Greg. So one of the things we wanted to do is how do we centralize, in a single pane of glass, your entire environment, right? So any company nowadays have some kind of SaaS application that's usually monitored by, again, the SaaS provider. But we need to monitor the access to that SaaS environment from your perspective. Your identities, as Greg mentioned, is very important. How you log on, what credentials are using MFA to get there. And then a lot of people who are migrating to the cloud, starting that process, getting their feet wet on the cloud, just for storage sometimes, for backup sometimes, and they really don't understand that it may not be cost effective for all workloads. So we need to analyze what workload is ready for the cloud. And just because they provide servers for you to store data, you need to front end that with firewalls, do all the security aspects that you would do in your normal data center. And again, on-premise is now becoming just unruly and it continues to multiply, and you need to have your eyes and visibility and all that. But you need to do this in a single pane of glass. And nowadays, especially with the current pandemic in the industry, where everybody's working from home or working remotely, a lot of those devices are just not prepared, right? They don't have antivirus, they don't have MFA enabled. So we need to now expand outside of our on-premise network and take a look at the managed endpoint devices and ensure that they're instrumented correctly for us to monitor. So USM now provides a visualization of your entire environment in a single pane of glass, and you could drill down all the way down to an IP address. One of the things I've always said that, if you look at the end result of what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to make, our environment, our data, protect data, like Greg said, secure. But you can't secure it unless you instrument anything that touches that data. So you have to start at the lowest level possible to instrument with agents or reviewing the logs, and then able to now correlate that data, normalize that data that's coming in from all kinds of different devices and all kinds of different data formats, correlate it, apply the rules, and be able to monitor now your entire environment, from your distributed systems to your backend, to the cloud, to your remote devices. So once you monitor and you start applying your security rules, then you can start managing. Because once you monitor, you have enough data to do forensics analysis of what happened, right? And the old days of, let me look at yesterday's data or last week's data. Oh, we got hacked, or this virus came in, and do forensics and correct. We're talking seconds now, right? So we need to have a system that automatically, through orchestration, is able to reroute traffic, stop an IP address, stop a port, or whatever. So you need that visibility as quickly as possible. So in the USM 3-tier architecture that we're showing here, you see at the lowest level, all these agents. We have logs from all kinds of security devices that are sent to this sensor. This sensor then has the right rules to move it upstream, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But there's also specific agents that we can that will live in the actual servers, whether it's Unix or Windows, that will use the APIs available to that platform and gather the information to send to the local sensor. There's also applications that AT&T has developed to monitor things like Azure Active Directory, Microsoft 365. So those applications then use APIs to those backend systems, again, to send it either to the sensor or remotely to NSM anywhere. So this tier now consolidates potentially a lot of different servers or a lot of different endpoints into maybe a USM anywhere by location or by subsidiary. And all that information then gets sent to USM Central, is that one single pane of glass where the information is stored, correlated, normalized, and reported on. So once we do the reporting, which also out of the box, it has ability to do all the requirements for your legal requirements, your financial requirements, any statutory requirements out of the box. It also then integrates directly with any service management ticketing system you may have to do the alerting or to do the orchestration at this level to go back and shut up a port, shut up a system, or do whatever you think you need to do. Greg, any comments on this? Okay, we'll move on. So the whole premise of what we're talking today is an hybrid approach.
Sorry about that, Nestor. Could you go back? Could you go back a slide?
Sure. I'm sure you were on mute.
Oh, absolutely. You know that. So it's like, yeah. So tier 1 and tier 2 is, what we like in Neovera have set up, right, for our clients as an example. So, each client, which is another unique thing here. One of our requirements that we had was to actually have separation of data between our clients. Okay, so client 1, client 2, client 3, like left or right here, right? Each client's data is separated. It's a separate content, right? So they're separate tenants. You can think about it like that. So it's not they have their own data store, etc. Right? So so we don't have that don't have that complication with. There's a lot of other providers that use software that everything's all in the same database, as an example. We don't. We use the AT&T product, and that separates the data. It keeps it separate between client 1, client 2, and client 3. So that's very important there to do. It also helps out with performance. It also helps out with rule sets. It also helps out just management-wise, when you're trying to drill into things. So each client can have, one client can, hey, I want to use ServiceNow. Another client may want to use Jira Service Desk, right? Another client want to use something else. We can kick off the various ticket systems. We can go up to other APIs. It's pretty nice in that way, right? So each
Greg, also for compliance reasons, right? We know we have some customers that are very heavy into some of the compliance. They're government agencies, and we need to keep all the log information completely separate.
Right, and then clients can also have a lot of sensors, right? Some clients, maybe a customer only has 1 or 2 sensors, but other clients could have 15, 20, 30 sensors, right? I mean, and they kind of all flow up. So that's very important there. And it's also to separate it. So you could have sensors dedicated, let's say, for all your Active Directories, for example, or maybe all of your firewalls and network devices, right? Or you could have another one for like different locations. And then for and sometimes you would just use an agent that's installed on servers for file integrity monitoring and host intrusion detection. Those can come into play very nicely as well. So, and you don't have to have agents, but you could, right? So it's just an option. It says business and technical decision on how you want to deploy. The nice thing is it's flexible. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Nestor, next slide. Yep.
And just to add on that, Greg, in case if you have four customers, for example, and one is compromised, the other three are not affected. So that's the federated approach that AT&T has taken. There's a lot of MSSP providers in the industry that are not federated approach, and they're all clumped together. So having that one painted glass ceiling where you can see one customer in each kind of window is tremendous upside for AT&T, because like I mentioned, if one customer is compromised, your other clients are not affected, and that's huge, and it keeps business users going, and it keeps business up as you work on the one client that is compromised. So AT&T, that was kind of number one in making USMA federated.
Good point.
I remember when we worked together back with even all the way back, Alien Ball and AT&T, right? All the way back in 2015. That's one of the reasons we went with the solution as well. So from the very start, same exact reason you just said. That's a great point, Ryan.
Exactly. And as we speak about distributed sensors and a hybrid approach, we could have a sensor for each office, right? So you have headquarters somewhere in North America. You may have offices in EMEA, Asia, anywhere else. Another, subsidiary or separate office in North America, and you have remote offices as well. It could be even some of your workers working from home, which is pretty prevalent now. And again, the remote devices that have access to that. So we could instrument these with multiple sensors. And as well, whatever presence you have in the cloud, it doesn't really matter if it's Azure, Google, AWS. And we have the on-prem and co-locations, not just our data centers, because we also manage customers in our data centers, not just theirs. And in co-location areas, we monitor those things, and then we send the information for those sensors and agents back to the appropriate ASM before it hits ASM Central. So this is a truly, 7/24 monitored system by our threat analysts and security experts. They are looking at all these areas for each one of our customers. And thank God for the federated model that the AT&T has provided. We're able to segregate that data. Greg, any comments on this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Again, because it's really about, we're using the advanced tools from AT&T, and then we have the know-how to do everything that you're seeing on the screen here, right? To be able to put the sensors instrumented all over cloud, on-prem, hybrid, exactly, right? And then all that information feeds up, and our analysts are looking at that 24/7, 365, right? And that's really the key piece right here, and we're able to offer that at a very, very cost-effective price for our clients.
Exactly. So the whole point, and Ryan brought this up in the beginning of this webinar, is about simplicity. There are so many moving parts in just a regular data center, and now people are really moving to the cloud and have these multi-hybrid type environments. Some of the SaaS vendors is forcing you to do that, right? Microsoft has done a great job at saying, hey, why are you managing your 700 desktops? Let us do that for you. Let's bring it up to Microsoft 365 or old Office 365. We'll manage that. So you're up there already. Why wouldn't you just put your file servers out there, when your applications up there, your web stuff for your clients? So now it's kind of the cloud providers are moving you to that direction, and now the complexity just goes up tenfold, right? But when you have a technology like this, like we've talked about, instrumenting it at the very lowest level, able to apply rules to correlate information, and then bring it up to the SIM tool, it becomes very, very manageable. And you as a customer have access to this pane of glass as well. So if you want to drill down on any one of these errors, alerts, or physical assets, one of the things that we've seen that have worked extremely well is the asset discovery piece of this tool. A lot of people, a lot of clients we talk to literally every day, we just talked to them this week, they really don't know what they have in their network. They just grown over years and years and years, And they may have devices out there that are portal entries into their environment, and nobody's managing them. They don't even know they have. So one of the great things about these sensors, it allows you to do the asset discovery of your infrastructure. All the servers, what operating system they're running, their users, Active Directory, who's using it, who's in there already, and all the network, obviously, devices, routers, switches, whatever you need. And now that you have the asset, it's very interesting. It's eye-opening to some of our customers that, oh, I didn't know we had that router. I didn't know we had that switch. Do we need it? Do we shut it off? All that. So it becomes a partnership between us, which are the managed providers and security monitors, and our clients, and monitoring the right assets that they need. So now we come down to this dashboard, right? As you can see here.
Back one slide. No, so you go back one slide real quick. So one thing when we were launching this off, to come out with a next generation security offering and not do security monitoring the old school way. And what I mean by that is, hey, I have a SIM tool, a security incident event management tool, and log management, and that's all security monitoring normally is for most vendors on the market. And then this was 6 years ago, guys, right? I'm listening to this, right? 6 years ago, right? So we leap forward with this with AT&T, right? And so what we're looking at is we're offering a next gen security solution, right? So not only are we doing all the security monitoring, but we're also wrapping that up with, giving you full visibility into what the assets are in your organization, vulnerability scanning integrated in, right? And all that information comes back in to have the tied into threat intelligence to make it more automated, linked to the rules that are already built in as well. That really makes this thing really sing, if you want to look at it that way, right? Then over the past few years, all these acronyms. I remember being at the RSA conference a few years ago and looking at probably 30 or 35 vendors on the market that just did one thing, one bullet point on here called EDR, right? They're doing EDR, TDR, MDR, XDR, right? All the acronyms roughly mean the same thing if you really get down to it, right? But we were looking for an integrated solution that linked everything together, right? So we've got that. All that's all built into our service that we have utilizing the AT&T technology, right? So all that. So you get all the security monitoring that you do. You go out and buy, I won't mention names. You can go out and buy a whole bunch of different log management tools over the years, right? I remember looking at them for many, many years, right? But pulling it all together is very critical. And then really understanding, how all this links together and integrated, because the solutions, you can go best of breed in each area, and you can also try to integrate everything together, and that becomes super, super expensive, right? The nice thing about the AT&T solution is that you start pulling in and they're integrating into some of the best tools in the market, for instance, like Qualys or SentinelOne or, Cisco, or, keep on going down the list, right? The integrations are being built into the product suite, and we're able to use those as your service provider. So that really helps out.
And
so
native
go ahead and
tools
go to the
in
next
the cloud,
slide.
right?
Yeah,
Native tools in the cloud, like they got a bunch of native apps, they call them, in Azure, for example, to integrate with the tools in Azure.
Yeah, the Azure Active Directory, Security Center, you name it, you got it. Got it, Nestor, yep.
Okay, so again, this is, kind of the interface that you as a customer can see. We see centrally for all customers and individually by each customers. Again, we will see all the asset discoveries. We have information of any alerts, any alarms at the same time that we do this. So all the sensor activity comes and floats up here. And then you can see top operating systems, all the Linux and different Microsoft versions that you have that you may not even know that you have, right? So all the inventory of software assets discovered, and then you could drill down in any one of these things. All right, so
the other thing too
Greg.
on this one.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, just go back. So the other thing too is at the top right, you'll notice the kill chain methodology, right? Going from environmental awareness to people doing recon to delivering attack to actual exploitation and system compromise. So here, when you start seeing things like way up top, like in the system compromise area, the big blue circles there, that's not a good thing, right? So that's something that you want to be exploring in real time. That's what our teams do 24/7 to kind of drill into that, understand what's going on there. The other piece right below that under sensor activity, we've been talking about hybrid cloud. This screenshot is just a good example, right? Of AWS, Azure, and VMware. Big deal, but try to do that with all tools, and then try to do that 24/7 and have it instrumented and feed it in. And then if you do have a compromise, what do you do about it? Next slide. And in this slide, if you start left and you start looking to the right, you see on the left-hand side, there's a malware infection with something, right? Now, you may have been on one of our webcasts earlier. We talked about ransomware and what things that can be done with ransomware, right? Well, this is another example here of how a ransomware event or malware event happens, right? It's been notified, right? In this case, like our team would be notified about it. Then it can automatically can blacklist, whatever happens that's going on. Then it can go ahead and you go ahead and do different things with, all the various tools. And if you have it tooled, so you look at this and you say, okay, well, what actions could I take, right? Well, let's say this is a server, let's say it's a desktop, whatever it happens to be. If you have, the agents and everything running on various equipment, right? This screenshot right here is showing you on the third box, disable the networking, right? Or you could get, hey, tell me all the established connections, right? Or get the users, or do other things in forensics, right? You can do those pieces, so you can isolate it. This happens to be this one example. You can see it says AWS, right? So they're knocking something out in AWS, and then on the right-hand side, it's kicking off like a ticket, right? Whatever's going on, right? It's saying, hey, it's coming from this sensor. Create a new incident from this alarm automatically, going up to whatever service desk is being utilized here in this case, and sending the information over so you can go ahead and do incident to resolution process, the old ITIL speak, right? ITIL speak. So that helps out with the whole process flow, right? Now, you may not automatically want to go ahead and disable the networking. Maybe that's not your policy, or maybe it is. That's a choice that each company needs to make. And that's the very nice flexibility that you can do with this product and our service. Next slide. Another key piece is that we found very, very helpful as well is the threat intelligence that feeds in. Right, so the Open Threat Exchange, or OTX, probably most of you on the phone have heard of that, know about it. You can Google it as well, but it's powered around the world. There's over 100,000 security professionals that are contributing to this thing all the time. So there's a lot of threat intelligence coming from all around the world, and the nice thing is that you can sync this various ways. Yeah, as you can see on the screen, you can integrate it in with various different options from different application program interfaces to SDKs, et cetera, right? But that's very key. So it's already there. And so we're able to get that, we're able to share it. So we can understand if, let's say you have Linux machines and there's a specific Linux exploit that just came out. It's in the OTX threat intelligence, and there's an event that happens, and then an alarm pops up on the screen. And then what it says is, oh, by the way, yeah, this is a high alarm because this is coming from, a bad IP or a bad URL that's communicating with your internal infrastructure. And you can also get reports to say, hey, you can look at it and say, what bad actors are interfacing with my environment today, the last 24 hours, the last 7 days, last 30 days. Those are things that can be done as well. Good, go to the next slide. And so, we as Neovera, right, as we're talking about security monitoring and more than that security monitoring today in a hybrid environment, we really need to make sure, all the basic tenets of security controls, the multi-factor authentication, all the RBAC, and then stuff I was just mentioning, all the acronyms called EDR, XDR, TDR, right, which is all basically endpoint security on laptops, desktops, servers, no matter where they're located, cloud, on-premise. You're sitting there in a coffee shop, checking your phone, or have your laptop sitting there and you're checking your email, et cetera. All that stuff protected. All your firewalls, whether it be a network level firewall or application based, like a web application firewall, and all those various pieces. But the other thing is you instrument all that, and the people say, oh yeah, I'm well and good, and a lot of people will do something called fire and forget, but they're not really looking at the whole thing, right? They're not really looking at it to detect, everything, right? So you have to look at security visibility, and security visibility is very critical. So just imagine if you went to the doctors, right, and you're not, if you have a medical issue, a lot of times, you know what, they're going to go ahead and do an MRI, they're going to do a CAT scan, they're going to do blood work. Think about it as the same thing, right? Security visibility is a 24-hour, 24/7, 365, almost like MRI or CAT scan, right? It is, just using that analogy, right? It's basically looking at all your infrastructure that you have tooled and understanding what's going on. Again, at the network level, the operating system level, the database level, the application level, and then what we talked about earlier, the identity and access management level, all integrated together, all correlated together, very critical. And you use a SIM tool to do that, to help you pull those pieces together, which we talked about. AT&T USM absolutely does that, right? They have, the USM piece pulls and correlates events, plus you can also build additional rules that can be done as well. But it's more than that, right? Like as we talked about also. The automation, right? It's something that you can help, to tie into the incident resolution process is very critical, so that your service desk, your auto blocking potentially of malware and bad actors, and your auto remediation as well. So if you have tools that can integrate back into, detect something, they can go ahead and communicate to a firewall, or detect something and communicate to an endpoint, a server, a desktop, something else to go ahead and stop things, or auto remediate or quarantine or fix things, as an example. So next slide. So the patch management, that's another important piece. Understanding what OS is on your operating system, right? Make sure that's patched up, but what software is running on it. And the nice thing is, if you run authenticated scans, which is part of our service using AT&T USM, you can actually see a lot of visibility into what the OSs are, what the software is installed on those operating systems. You can see a lot of stuff, so that can help you out. It is not a patch management solution out there in the market, but it can help security-wise understand where you're at, what you need to patch, what maybe you're behind on security updates. It can help with a lot of things doing that direction. Make sure you have backups in place. That's how a lot of people have recovered from ransomware attacks over the years. Make sure you document your incident resolution plan and processes with that. If you don't have that documented, that's something Neovera can help with as well. Make sure you have, a 24/7 team in place, and people go, why do I need that? I'm only open 9 to 5. Well, hackers are 24/7. They don't rest. Make sure you got a business continuity plan or disaster recovery plan in place. That's bigger than security. That's overall BCP and DR plan, or some people call it a COOP as well, concept of operations. And then we run something with our clients that we like to run periodically, and it's good for many, many reasons. But is run what we call tabletop exercise. Run through different use cases, different types of incidents. SEV 1, SEV 2, SEV 3, and SEV 4s, all the way from like a little basic thing, someone clicked on a bad URL but nothing really happened, all the way up into mission critical, systems are down, right? Run through those use cases from a security perspective, jointly with your providers as well as the client, and run through that, because the old motto in security is trust but verify, and that's what this will help go through this, and that will help test all of your all the security controls and systems, no matter what party, whether it's you have multiple parties, or whether you do it yourself or you have a third party do it. And then you can also go through and run something separately, but run a test on your backup and restore processes. A lot of people will test and make sure the backups work, but are they testing that their backups are actually good and they can actually restore them?
And Greg, sometimes we need to do this for compliance reasons as well, right? Either quarterly or by yearly for our clients. So we have to go through these exercises for the compliance reporting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Greg, one thing I want you to kind of highlight on, I heard that you mentioned it, and it's super, super important in our cyber industry, is 24/7. As people know, skilled cybersecurity resources are very limited. So if somebody's saying they're 9 to 5, like you mentioned, that's easily hackable. With USM Anywhere, with the 24/7 solution, you're monitored 24/7. That means companies need a solution that can be run by IT generalists, is what I like to call it. You don't have to have a specialty in firewalls or patching. You can be a generalist to monitor 100 end users up to 50,000 end users. That's how the simplicity is with the 24/7. So I really want to highlight the 24/7 is a big, big piece, because most of the incidents that I see people are getting hacked is when we're sleeping. Back to you, Greg.
Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. It's a great point, because I mean the 24/7 piece, like, we're supporting customers around the world. Yeah, so maybe 6 a.m. Our time, but it's they're 12 hours, 15 hours ahead of us, or it could be 1 a.m. their time, and it's 1 p.m. our time, right? So that's the whole point, is like it's a 24-hour industry that we live in, right? So there's no rest for the weary, as they say, for the the defense in depth and defense controls against hacking out there. So I mean, and it's really good, where we can rely on the AT&T and the USM suite, right, to be able to help us provide 24/7 support worldwide. So it's great.
And Greg, we think about hackers as you said, they're awake 24 hours a day. The thing is now they're getting very, very sophisticated in the dark world, right? They're collaborating. Nations are collaborating together, to bring down U.S. Financial industries. So they're collaborating around the clock. These are government-sponsored hackers that are doing this now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, the nation state attacks, right, have been going on for many years, right? They're going on today, and they're going to continue to go on. They're not. I don't think they're going to stop. And then you're talking about sponsored, right? Certain countries around the world. The other piece that is happening, which has been in the news all over the world, is the attack on. We rely on a lot of automation in IT to scale. The attacks on the supply chain, the attacks on software vendors that provide automation tools is going to continue as well, right? So you need to make sure you have those tools fully instrumented, watch 24/7, heightened level of there's a lot of noise, but a heightened level of importance on those assets, so they may fire alarms more often, but you want to know about that. If someone's breaking in and going to go ahead and breaking in and get the crown jewels, you want to know about it. If they're breaking into the tool that you rely on to do automation, you want to watch that thing like a hawk. You want to watch that continuously, right? Put all the various layers of control around it. So it's extremely important.
Yeah, and Greg, it's really about having the model, a risk model, to say, you're not housing, the nuclear launch codes like the government in a share, in a room, segregated from your network. But what is the risk of you losing access to the web, your applications that your users can't connect to? What does that cost you per minute or per hour? So you got to establish that risk model, and we're able to do that with you as well, to segregate your assets into each one of the concentric circles of importance, right?
Yep, go ahead, and absolutely. So go to the next slide. Yeah, so as what Ness was just talking about, so the piece that we bring in the puzzle as well, right, is we can help. We're not, all the different infomercials and commercials over the years where the consultants come in and then they say, oh yeah, we don't do that, right? Well, we do. We'll come in and we'll do the consulting services with you. We'll help you with the design of systems. We'll implement the systems for you. We'll integrate the systems into other products, whether it's on-prem, IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS. And then we can have ongoing services as well, right? So, we do, all the security monitoring like we've talked about today. We do security management, and it doesn't matter, what it is, right? From the sense of whether it's sitting in a private data center, whether it's sitting up in a cloud, or whether it's sitting on-prem, right? That whole hybrid model, we will definitely help you secure, security monitoring, security management around that, right? To help prevent, detect, and remediate against incidents and threats. So the other thing too that we come to the table with as well is we come with an integrated team, is a very tight team. So we have project managers, we have threat analysts, we have engineers, and we have architects. And that's critical, right, to have all those phases of and all those roles on the team to bring everything to bear. Next slide. And starting with us is actually very easy. You can think of it as like 3 on-ramps. If you're just kicking the tires and trying to figure things out, quick workshop. You could do it. You can do a remote. These days, on Teams or Zoom or whatever it happens to be out there in the marketplace, right? That you guys are comfortable with. If you're past kicking the tires and hey, we really want to kind of really do a readiness assessment, we can do that, and then we can do full implementation as well in 24/7 services. And with that, let me turn it over to Shar, who's going to go ahead and talk about our upcoming webinars. Next slide.
Great, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, totally appreciate it. And what a great webinar. I love the diversification between you all and how you brought it all together into one part to be able to speak so freely about our partnership with AT&T and all the great things that we're able to do with them now. So we have 2 more webinars coming up. The next one is next Thursday, Demystifying Azure Cloud Security. So basically, it's about what security controls are available for your Azure environment and some of the best practices. And then we do have another one in the middle of November. So it is going to be on Wednesday. It is the hybrid security monitoring, doing a technical deep dive. So whether this is more of an overview, we're really going to get into the all the bells and whistles of everything. And basically best practices, what you want to do and why you need 24/7 hybrid security monitoring. So go ahead next. So once again, thank you. We do appreciate you joining the webinar today. We will also be sending out a link to this recording for your reference. But if you do happen to have any future questions or would like to talk further with Neovera, please give us a call. Please email us at info@neovera.com, and we'll be more than happy to set up a call and actually speak with you about how we can assist you in your infrastructure. So at this point now, I'd like to see if there are any questions that we can go ahead and answer for you.
And Shar, while we wait for any questions, I would like to thank Ryan Palmer again for being part of the webinar. Really appreciate it, and hopefully you'll be able to come and bring some of your other team members, for some of the upcoming webinars that we'll have as well.
Yes,
Oh,
great.
Thank you for having me, Greg. Yes, and I will have my solution architect for, I believe, the second technical demo of the hybrid cloud, Raphael. So I look forward to that one as well.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Well, at this point, there aren't any questions, but are there any other comments or thoughts and suggestions from the speakers?
I have just one more comment, Shar. At the end of the day, if you're making bicycles, you don't need an IT staff of 20 people. Focus on your business, whatever it is, and let the experts monitor and manage your systems. I find that to be a lot of people nowadays, they just, because they don't know how, they keep hiring people, especially now going to the cloud. I would just suggest to focus on the business, whether it's a bank or you're making cakes and you're selling it on the internet, whatever it is, focus on that and let security experts take care of your business behind the scenes.
Great comment, definitely. Ryan, I think you were going to say something.
That was great by Nestor. That's exactly the model of USM. That's how we came up with the USM product. Is we want customers to do what they do best, and that's run their business and not have to worry about IT infrastructure, IT worries, cybersecurity threats. We want them to do what they do best, and that's making money for their company. And like Nestor said, leave it to the IT experts to run the IT infrastructure.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I would just, to both what Nestor and Ryan were saying is, as well, is that if you look at it kind of like from Neovera, it's like we didn't go try and build our own security solution, right? Product. Right? We partnered with AT&T for the security technology. What we do is we bring our security know-how and expertise, and then integrate and use USM Anywhere and USM Central to the best of our ability, right, for our clients. So I think it's a really good marriage, if you will, and to provide the best solution for our clients.
Yes, I definitely am looking forward to discussing with prospective clients across the board. So, all right. Well, nothing else on the board then. So with that being said, I am going to thank everyone for attending this, really, you could say this first part of the hybrid security monitoring webinar. And like I said, please sign up for the one that's going to be coming up in November. Once again, any questions? info@neovera.com. We'll be more than happy to assist you. So thank you again, and wishing you all a great day.